All right, so I'm Patrick. I'm going to move around a lot. I'm going to take advantage of my stage and be over here and over here. I like being on stage. A lot of the stuff that I enjoy doing with my life, I play guitar, I sing, I have to talk to people a lot, and so I don't mind being in front of the camera, being on a stage. What's tough for me is research. I'm not a scientist, as you can probably tell from how I act. But another thing that's been tough for me to learn is that just because you don't make a lot of money doing something, or because you're not a professional at something, doesn't mean that your experience is not valid. So all the stories that you all have to tell about your life, I can't tell those stories for you. That's your job. You need to represent yourself. You need to live by your morals, and you represent yourself as you see fit. You share with your experiences with others, and that's always valuable. That's been a tough thing for me to learn. So, that's me. I'm going to tell you guys 3 stories today. And they'll be short stories, but they all have a moral. So the way that I'm tying this to what now is the fact that in the future, because our world is shrinking because of globalization, because of globalization, I get to know you. Because if you all didn't need to know English, I wouldn't be here working as an English teacher, right? So I'm here to help you understand that you're going to have to confront what's called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you understand something, you have an idea, something that you consider important, or your morals, and you have to make sense of a conflict with somebody else and their ideas and their morals. So there's several different ways you can deal with that. You can either let it crush you, or you can try to beat the other person with your ideas. Doesn't work too often. Or you can just kind of give up and walk away from it. So I'm going to tell you about 3 different times that I confronted this kind of problem, an ideological problem, how I got over it, and how that's allowed me to be very happy. So just real quick before I get into my stories, I've had kind of a tough life. I've seen a lot of weird and strange stuff as I've grown up. My father's a drug addict. My father and my mother are both disabled. Although I come from the United States, we don't have a lot of money. In my neighborhood, there's a lot of drugs. I've seen 2 people be shot in my lifetime. I've been through a lot of stuff, and through all of that, I've still been happy. I've always had a job. I've always had friends and a girlfriend, and I've never hurt anybody. So to me, I count myself a success, because I could be a statistic. I could be another drug addict. I could be without job. I could not have respect for women and my community. I could not have these morals that I still have. So these are stories about not compromising your morals, all right? So my first one, when I was in kindergarten, I think it was kindergarten, there was this kid, we'll call him Bill Bully, all right? So I used to go sit on the swings with this girl. She was just the girl. I don't remember what she looked like. I don't remember the color of her hair or what she sounded like or any of that. All I know is I sat on one swing and she sat on the other swing, and every day I would wait for the moment that we had to go back inside, and I would be like, I just want to stay out here swinging forever. So it was always me and the girl, and we would swing every recess. Well, one day there was this kid, again we'll call him Billy Bully, and Bill was having a hard time that day. He was having a hard time. He couldn't be disciplined. He was being really loud. He was carrying on. So when we went outside, Bill decided he was going to control the swings. He was upset that the teacher didn't let him do what he wanted to do in the classroom. So Bill decided that he was going to run out. Me and the girl are walking to the swings. We're going to have a good time. He runs around us, grabs the swings, and he ties all the chains for the swings in a rope, in like a knot, ties them up. And me, knowing how much fun it is to sit on the swing and then let it like spin around, I tried to sit on the swing. So I'm like, oh, excuse me, Bill, I tried to sit on the swing. And he pushes me. He's like, no, the swings are mine today. Nobody else gets to use the swings. So I looked at him. I was like, well, I guess I could play something else. And then I looked, and the girl was upset. The girl was looking at me and looking at him like, I want to use the swings, And I looked for the teacher. The teacher was on the other side of the school. And with my short, fat 5-year-old legs, she might as well have been in China. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to tell the teacher right now. So I walk back up to Bill. I try to take the thing again, try to take my swing, and he pushes me again. And this time I fell down. And I was so happy I finally got to defend myself. My mom taught me, you can't hurt somebody, but if somebody hurts you, you can defend yourself. So I was like, all right, cool. So as soon as he pushed me, I jumped up and I let him have it. I threw Bill in the sand. He tried to get up. I made him eat sand. You know, it felt good, only because I was acting on my morals. I looked first to have somebody else help me and not take advantage of the situation. And I bettered my life for it. Didn't have to deal with Bill anymore, because they sent me to another school. So what I learned from that is, when you can, because sometimes you have to act on your morals. You have to defend yourself. You have to speak up for yourself, because nobody else is ever going to do it. But at the same time, being right, knowing that your convictions and your morals were correct in a situation, that doesn't mean that it's okay to take advantage. It doesn't mean that it's okay to hurt somebody else. So what I learned is, act selfish, but temper yourself. That's the first moral that I got. Act selfish, but temper yourself. Then I made another friend. So that was what? That was kindergarten, like 1996, something like that. Then I got to junior high, right? I got to junior high, I meet one of the best friends I'll ever have in my life. And we'll call him Paul. So I meet this guy, Paul, right? And Paul, my best friend, was this guy who's the first person I'd ever met who was better than me at everything. Everything. I mean, sports. He was smarter than I was. He was funny. We would go talk to the girls. He would get their phone number and I wouldn't. Everything. He would beat me at everything. And for the first time, I decided he had to be my friend. Instead of being jealous, instead of not liking this guy, I was like, no. I was like, if he's so much better than me at everything, I gotta learn from him. Like, I gotta be next to that. I gotta hold myself to the fire and see how to be more like Paul, right? So I started doing that. So what I learned eventually was that the reason he was so happy and also so conflicted, he was like me in kindergarten. He always defended himself. He always used his morals and lived through what he thought was right. But he didn't make considerations for other people. So when I would have a conversation with somebody and I didn't like what they were saying, I had room. I let them tell me things. I shared information. I didn't get upset. Paul wasn't like that. If there was somebody and they disagreed with him and they got in his face, he would just fight them, which would have been okay, I guess, if there wasn't so many people that he disagreed with. So then it got to this point where everybody wanted to fight this guy because he was smart, because he was good looking, because he was funny, because he was all of these things that he was putting out into the world. He was pretty much a great person. The problem was that people with big ideas and people who carry themselves with confidence, they're going to confront more challenges because they're going to be involved with in more situations and things like this. So Paul made a lot of enemies. He dated like half the girls in the school. All their ex-boyfriends were pissed off at him. He started like messing up in class and stuff. And one day it got so bad, it got to the point where, I remember this so vividly. He was dating a girl who I had a crush on this girl, right? So Paul was dating her, and she was just as smart as we were. She was the girl who intimidated me, like to the core, like the girl that when you talk to her, you just want to like, how was your day? That was her. And so he was with this girl, and he tried to talk to her like he did everybody. He tried to, total confidence and like, I know what's what. And she wasn't having it. She was a really, really smart girl. So she saw how he was, and one day they broke up, and he didn't take it too well. And when I say he didn't take it too well, I mean that I lived like 20 minutes away. I was a little bit further north. So he called me one day after school, and he told me, he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know I'm not going to see you at school next week. I was like, okay, is everything all right? He's like, not really. It's like, we broke up, and I took a whole bottle of Vicodin so I wouldn't have to feel this anymore. So he told me, look, you're my best friend. You're the only person I'm going to tell this. He's like, my parents aren't home. So I expect you to be secretive about it. If you tell anybody, we're not going to be friends anymore. If you care about me, you won't embarrass me in this way. So I was like, get off the phone. And as soon as he hung up, I called somebody. As soon as we got off the phone. Because this is the second moral that I learned. Sometimes, although it's going to hurt you, and although it's not really it's not the most fun decision you can make, sometimes your hand is forced and you have to act on your morals. I think that everybody's life is valuable. And I think that mental illness and substance abuse and all these other things that cause people to devalue themselves and think that they're not worth the effort, that's the problem. So, as soon as I got off the phone with my buddy, I called his ex, because that girl she had broken up with him, she was smart enough to know what was best in the situation, and her sister had a car. So her and her sister go pick up my buddy Paul, take him to the hospital. It all works out, basically. So when I see him, he wants to fight me. And he's a really good fighter, and he's taller than I am, and he's like stronger than I am. So the next day at school, or next week, or whatever, after he took a few days off, I see him on campus, and I know he wants to fight me, because he takes off his backpack, and I see him from far away, and he's like waiting for me. So I walk right up to him, because I'm pretty big too, and I'm like, okay, well, time to take my licks, So I walk up to my friend, and he hits me one time really hard in my chest. And I stood back, and I kind of looked at him. He's like, why would you do that? Why would you violate my confidence? Why would you ruin our relationship like that? You took the only thing that was secret to me, and you told somebody, And I was like, man, I would rather you hate me for the rest of your life than live a moment knowing that I could have helped you, and I didn't. My hand was forced. I had to do something. So, act selfishly when you have to, but be tempered. Sometimes your hand will be forced and you'll have to do things that you don't want to do, but accept that you have to do them and applaud yourself for it. I did that years ago. Recently, he told me that he's been thankful for that for his whole life, and that was worth it. So that's the second story. Last story, and I'll be done. So this one, like I told you, my dad uses drugs. So it's been a really hard battle for me to confront the idea that I won't be like him, to accept the idea that you can be different than your parents, that you don't have to follow a pattern, that your fate is not preordained by the circumstances that you're born into, right? Okay, so when I really sit and think about it, as far back as I can remember, my dad used drugs. From the earliest memories I have with him, of him coming back at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday for no reason, to him saying, okay, I'll be right back, and not coming back for a week on end. That being said, my dad loved me. My dad always took care of me. I always had clothes. I always had food. But when I wanted to play catch, he bought me a machine that throws the ball for you. When I wanted to learn a sport, my dad bought me lessons to learn that sport. He never took a moment to actually put himself in the situation and try to be there with me. So, when it came down to it, later on in our future, we were not very much alike. I wanted everything and wanted to grow and be this different person, and my dad saw himself as a failure and somebody who hadn't been there for his son, and he hated himself. And so there was this weird divide. Me with confidence and knowing that I'm a good person, and my pops with nothing and hating himself, etc. So it got to this point where he decided I was wrong. He decided that I was wrong because I went and got my education, and I'm trying to make something of myself, and I'm trying to fight against these systems of oppression that face everybody. But instead of learning from me, cognitive dissonance again, cognitive dissonance is when you confront two ideas. Instead of learning from me, he told me that he wanted me to prove it. So if I'm so smart, if you're so damn smart, why don't you go and do something with it? I'm not going to listen to you until I see that you're smarter than I am. I was like, you better be careful what you wish for. It's like, because the more you push, the more you do that. I was like, if this is what you want, I was like, I can go. Like, I can adapt. Like I said, that's been like, if I'm an expert at something, it's adapting. I'm happy everywhere I go, right? So I was like, be careful what you wish for, because I'm going to do it. So this was, 9 months ago that he told me this? I was like, all right. The next day, I applied to this program. So now 9 months later, I'm here in Spain. I sold everything I love in my country. I sold everything. I used to be a DJ. I sold like $1,200 worth of speakers. I sold my amplifier, $3,000 Marshall amplifier. I sold it for $400 because I needed a ticket to come here to prove to him that these things that I'm trying to share with you right now, how to confront other people's ideas and still feel happy at the end of your day, they work. They work because I'm here. I'm still totally poor. You guys are looking at one of 3 outfits I have to my name. This is like more than half of my clothes. But I'm happy. I have a job. I have the respect of my peers in my community. I carry myself exactly how I want to carry myself. And even people with more money than me can't tell me how to be. And realistically, that's all I've ever wanted. I still get to determine my future, even though we don't have a lot of money. There's a whole lot of substance abuse in my family and a history of mental illness and all of this stuff. But through it all, I've managed to strive and feel good about myself for having confidence and those 3 things. Being selfish when you have to, but tempering your reaction to people. What was the second one? Where is it? I fit all my notes on this little card, by the way. Okay. How did I put it on here? Okay. Be selfish when you have to and temper yourself. Sometimes you'll have to do things that won't make you happy, but you should applaud yourself when you do them. And lastly, sometimes some people you can't win. Some people, your ideas, no matter how good they are, no matter how happy you are and how much proof you give them that your idea is worth listening to, some people will not be moved. And it's not your job to sacrifice yourself for them. If you have somebody in your family who you don't get along with, who you want to get along with, don't waste 10 years of your life trying to fix that, because I did that. It doesn't work. There's no magic bullets. There's no secrets. It doesn't matter how many TED Talks you go to. If you go to TED Talks and you look up and you feel really happy and then you go home and do exactly what your parents do, or you go home and do exactly what you did the day before, none of this even matters. I could have danced for 15 minutes. But if I danced for 15 minutes and it changed your mind, that's all that matters. It's the action that happens over there. Like several people before me have said. Doesn't matter how many TED Talks I give or if I dance. All that matters is that you guys apply yourself and you know when to apply your morals, because in the future, ahora que, we're all going to need to get along in these ways. We're going to have to confront one idea with the other, and they're not always going to be equal, and it's not always going to feel good to be wrong. So you have to learn when it's okay to try to put your idea forth and act on it, when you have to do something you don't want to do because of your ideas, and when you have to just accept that it doesn't matter what ideas you have, because sometimes people don't want to change. Amen.